Welcome in
I
to a
guess so.
special edition of the Jordy Culotta Show from the double secret, undisclosed location in the bunker of the bunker.
We've gone deep
Way
south.
off the grid, bro.
Little Nicky style.
I don't even know if the bomb could find us here. This might be a safe spot for us.
Hey, had to do it for the people.
Lizzie, on the fly, great work, bro. Finally, after 8 months of employment, earning a paycheck
Finally,
around here.
That's what I was telling my mother. Also, shout out to her because she helped immensely with the cleaning. It was not ready. But I was wondering, I was like, is this the time to ask for a raise? And it turns out probably not.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But excellent work, Lizzie.
Thank you,
on the
sir.
fly,
I
bro.
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
It is good to be here. Sorry we have been away. Obvious reasons. No power. Our pets' heads are falling off.
Got no jobs.
But first, seriously, let us start on a real note. Our serious thoughts and prayers. I know that that's kind of melodramatic these days, that term, thoughts and prayers, but just thinking about the people of South Louisiana, specifically in Terrebonne, Houma, Laplace, all throughout Belle Chase, all throughout Golden Meadow, all throughout just deep South Louisiana, Port Fourchon, where we went fishing a couple of weeks back, Grand Isle, Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana, obviously, Ascension Parish, Walker, Louisiana, all of the areas. And if I missed one, I'm sorry, but just that part of our state was absolutely rocked over the last 48 hours by Hurricane Ida, now tropical storm Ida. But some of the images, some of the reports, some of the news that has come out since Ida has come through Louisiana has been extremely scary and really tough to fathom for some of the people that lived through the strength of Ida, because she was a monster, man. And I know that Baton Rouge was hit, and there are still just tons of people throughout the greater Baton Rouge area who are still living without power. I am one of them. But I think that when you take a step back and look at the grand scale of the power and strength of this storm that came through here, and for what Baton Rouge really narrowly missed. I mean, when you think of Walker and Ascension Parish and what they took on, and how close East Baton Rouge Parish obviously is to those surrounding areas, it is really incredible to think, that Baton Rouge was. I don't want to say lucky, because I know some people out there are dealing with some circumstances that are far beyond mine of just being without power, but for what other people are dealing with and some of the images that have come out, obviously Lloyd is here, but I sent a video that is now up on YouTube, and we can send it and post it on our social media site, but I still don't know the guy's name, but he stayed in Golden Meadow for the storm and recorded about 4.5 minutes of footage that, I'm telling you, throughout my entire life and seeing all types of images, videos of storm, obviously being from here, it is the scariest, eeriest, most wicked things, sights, sounds that you could imagine. This guy is sitting in the teeth of a Category 4, what feels like a 5 hurricane in what looks like a fishing camp. Like, I mean, almost like a houseboat type fishing camp in deep southern Louisiana. And he has got his window open, and there's an AC unit right next to him. And the power and strength of the wind and water that is pounding the side of his structure. However, I don't know if he's alive. Obviously, I mean, I guess he is, but how he is alive is only a miracle, because when he scans the scene around him First off, his living room has every window blown out, and the storm is coming into his structure. And then you can see behind him the structures that were there, and it's a skeleton. I mean, it's nothing but the bones of whatever is around him. And I'm telling you, it is the scariest piece of footage I've ever seen in my life. And if you've seen it, you'd recognize that the guy he's got knuckle tattoos. He's got tattoos on his knuckle while he's holding his phone. And there's an AC unit sitting right to his left. We'll put it out tonight if you haven't seen it. And I know some people probably don't even want to see it, but it just gives you it gives you a very clear perspective of just how overwhelming Mother Nature can be when she puts her foot on the gas. I mean, that was as powerful and as strong as it sounds. And still, between midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning in Baton Rouge, it was wicked, man. I mean, it was. I stayed up for a little bit of it, but finally, it just couldn't go anymore. But I mean, the wind and the whipping of the wind and what it was doing to oak trees. Now, luckily.
Well, there's something to the power of it all. Like what you say, whatever you're watching, you're like, I can't believe I'm even seeing this.
Yes.
Like it's not so
it's
much
more
like,
the sound.
Right. And you can't, like, you understand that devastation's happening all around you, but you're just, whenever you walk outside and see it, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And it's hard to fathom, like, just like you said, when Mother Nature rears its ugly head, it's just like, oh my, anything can happen. I don't even,
anything.
You don't feel safe for one single second.
Man.
You just walk outside almost in awe.
I mean, something could fall on your head, or she could pick this thing up and throw it.
You have no, like, because we don't understand the power.
No.
Like, even when you're outside, you're like, shit, this feels real. Like, I understand how big of a storm this is. But until you see a tree go down, or you see a house get, swept up, or you see the video that you're talking about, you don't, it never really hits you until it hits you.
Yes.
And I think it's a testament to the people of Louisiana more than anything, like the way that they're able to not only deal with this, but also help. And, there's people that don't want to leave, and there's people that, they can't leave. They don't have the circumstances to be able to get out of town. But the fact that people can rally so quickly in this state and help so immensely, so quickly is what I think is what makes Louisiana special. Like, I think that's the biggest underlying theme of all of this is we know where we live. We know that this will happen, but it's the fact that we know we also have help no matter where you turn. People will open up their doors. The Cajun Navy is unbelievable. It's just a thing now.
It is. I mean, they have like contact lists that are just floating around now, where it's almost become, it's become almost like a rite of passage when anything goes wrong. I mean,
feels
you've got
like it's a part of the military.
It
feels like, just the Cajun Navy will be there. Like that. I think that the underlying thing that I took from all of this is Louisiana, man.
Well, this is when they shine. This is when we shine. This is when we do our best. This is when we are our most likable.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? We are we're tough not to like in these circumstances just because you see the good in all the people down here, and there's so much good, obviously. And we're going to talk about some of it and try and divert you for a little bit if we can. I know that right now is very overwhelming times for a lot of us, so we never want to lose perspective of that. And we always want to know that we're here to help if in any kind of way, if simply just turning on these microphones and starting to preview some of the things that are happening in and around our state within sports, hey, it's the least we could do. So we appreciate you being out there with us. We're on the website at jordyculotta.com, and we're also on YouTube this afternoon.
Whoa, just be on YouTube for a second. Hold on.
Okay.
I think that's okay. That's okay. Just told you, if you want to find us,
Definitely not on
YouTube.
Facebook.
Definitely not on Facebook. But the stream started freaking out a little bit whenever we put it on both. So just for YouTube for now.
Okay, that's fine. We also want to give a shout out to all of our supporters out there, especially Go Chevrolet. They have been tried over the last 48 hours, just like many of you. But obviously, Laplace, Louisiana was thrown a haymaker by Ida and connected on the jaw, as Laplace is very much underwater and going through a hell of a time right now. And Go Chevrolet, from what we've been able to gather, did move the inventory off of the lot. But obviously the showroom and some of the office space down there that is not even a year old is going to be affected, and we'll tell you how they'll function and how you can get in touch with them. But the best way to do it is online at geauxchevrolet.com. So down in Laplace, the brand new car lot obviously hit, but don't forget about the used car lot over here. LSU picked up and moved their operation to Houston for practice and preparation for UCLA, which, by the way, the Tigers are going to leave on Thursday after practice, and we'll be jumping a flight Thursday with Mr. Fun's Travel out of Baton Rouge and flying into Burbank Thursday afternoon. Really looking forward to it, as we're going to spend the day in L.A. On Thursday when we land, go out to dinner that night. Then on Friday, we're actually staying with a friend of mine in Santa Barbara, which is about an hour and 45 minutes away. It's on the coast, and we're going to spend Friday in Santa Barbara, which is where like Joe Montana and those San Francisco 49ers used to do training camp. It's a beautiful town. We're going to go all around, and then on Saturday, game day, bro. A couple of tailgates set up, and then we'll be staying in Los Angeles after the game, and then jumping back on the flight on Sunday and getting home. But
first trip to Pasadena?
First trip to Pasadena. It is not my first trip to the town. I have seen the Rose Bowl from the mountains. You can look down into the Rose Bowl from the San Gabriel Mountains. Went out. It's a beautiful, picturesque postcard type place.
Yeah,
I have never seen it. I've seen it in summertime. There was nobody in there. The field wasn't painted. But still, you know what I mean? Just, you could not really envision what it would be like to watch LSU play in that venue.
Killing me right now.
Ducked behind the mountains.
The carrot you dangled in front.
I'm sorry. I didn't know that. I didn't know that Ida was.
That big bitch got me.
Yeah, she got you.
Ida got my ass.
You're a casualty. You are a casualty of Ida.
But I can't imagine the picture that's going to paint of LSU, UCLA, Pasadena. I don't think that they know. We've said this before. I don't think that they know what's in store for them due to the fact of what I saw versus UCLA Hawaii.
Well, first off, just to paint the picture of the game, UCLA's uniforms on that cut grass in that stadium is about as good as college football can offer up, right? I mean,
they really don't need another uniform out there.
I don't know if there is a better just relationship between the whole thing. You know what I mean? And if there is, biasly, I would put LSU in the mix with Tiger Stadium and the classic uniforms of just how they look on television, just the brand, the way that those two, UCLA and LSU, stand out. Now, there's a handful of teams that we could throw in there that are in that, but LSU and UCLA are two of the most recognizable brands in college football. And to put UCLA in the powder blues with the gold helmets on the Rose Bowl field at a 5:30
the greenest
kickoff,
grass of all time.
The greenest. And still in the mode where it is the greenest. Like, you're not going to see it in November where it's like shredded up a little bit and looks a little stale. But this game, just to the eyeballs, and I know that I'm not trying to kick you while you're dead, because I think on television it's going to be as beautiful. You know what I mean? Like the experience of being there will be second to none, but it will be HD television, seeing this thing at 7:30 LA time when the sun is beginning to set behind the mountains, and watching LSU and UCLA on the Rose Bowl. I mean, that's as good as we could offer. That's as good as you could offer,
football,
right?
Dude.
I mean, like, that is the platter which you say, look, this is the main dish. This is what we've been leading you up to. And I know that Georgia and Clemson will play to the main stage on Saturday night, as they probably should, as the rankings say, right? I mean, that's probably the best game. That is the best game, the best matchup of the weekend. But for people who have invested interest, like we do and LSU does, like 20,000 people, which have been reported, flooding in to Los Angeles this weekend, I can't think of a non-conference matchup that I have really been more juiced about just seeing the game. Right? Like, I mean, like going to Dallas for all those games and TCU and Oregon and Miami, it was more about the the experience of Dallas and what was going on or in and around the stadium.
See, I would say it's more about those are more about the matchups. This is about the stadium. Like the first time, this compares to me to the first time in Jerry's World. When you go to Jerry's World, like, look at the spectacle. But whenever they built that stadium, you knew LSU would be back there. This feels like the one that always got away. LSU has never been able to go to Pasadena. They've never made, because just of, in previous years and how the Rose Bowl and everything set up, it's so hard for LSU to make that trip unless it's a national championship. So for this to be set up to be able to go to Pasadena, I feel like you're going just for the experience, brother. You're not going for, I mean, the game's going to be great. Don't get me wrong, but it's all the ancillary factors
Absolutely.
of the Rose Bowl, the colors. Like, I know it sounds dumb if you don't like college football the way we do.
Yeah.
But this is an absolute bucket list item to where you feel. It's like the Wisconsin LSU game when they went to Lambeau. It's like, this will never happen again.
Right.
I don't know if LSU will go to Pasadena again. Like, the Las Vegas thing will probably be a trip. Like, they'll do that once every 3 years. This has never happened since, the 80s, where LSU had to go to UCLA.
Well, they actually went to USC in the
Yes.
Coliseum.
Right. So I feel like this is just such a once-in-a-lifetime type deal that I'm, even on TV it'll be great, but seeing it in person is going to be something special for the people that get to go.
No, it's going to be great, man. I really am fired up about the experience. More for Jordan and just being able to
soak it in.
I mean, this is, and being at his age, he'll remember this forever, right? I mean, like, he's not too young where you'll almost just kind of remember getting off the airplane and getting back on the airplane. I mean, you'll remember everything that goes into the experience of seeing this on the stage that it's set for. Now, after watching UCLA last Saturday, very much not impressed with DTR, the passer. Now, the athlete, the runner.
He tried to do the hurdle again.
Yeah, he does. He
can't help himself.
He's going to get thrown into the turf this Saturday if he tries to hurdle. That is something that I guarantee you Durante Jones is coaching his group. If he leaves his feet, you make him punish him. What is the move if somebody does that?
I think
you slam them down, right? I mean, because they have no feet. I mean, like they.
Or do you wait for him to come down and then you give him the shoulder?
I guess it depends on how you time it.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you could run straight through them, if you could time it like where he's coming down and run straight through him,
never do it again.
That would probably be the ultimate. But I think the way that you coach it is, if they leave their feet, you slam them into the ground. Like, I mean, you almost
because that Hawaii cat timed it pretty. He almost looked like he expected it. Not to derail the conversation, but it looked like they knew also that he does that move every now. That's his go-to. Is a little like just hurdle. He was hurdling out of nowhere.
Right.
But
which is a habit on a football field that once you start to do it, it doesn't matter who you're playing. You kind of instinctively do it. He could get hurt this weekend. You know what I mean? I think that LSU's defense has to look at that matchup, which I think they'll be tested run defense, which I think is a great opening weekend test. Like, people asked me what I thought about Hawaii after the game, and was getting text messages, and we went out to eat on Saturday night and just kind of talking about it, was that I think this is a perfect opening game for LSU. Like, this is a great test for this LSU group. First off, the travel. I mean, to travel nearly halfway across the country to get into a venue that's going to be very much out of your element, and then playing a team that has expectation to be marketably improved from where they were last year. And I thought Chip Kelly still calls a really impressive game. Like, his play calling, the way he kind of sets you up to knock you out. You know what I mean? Against a lesser opponent, it's easier to see what his game plan. And he wasn't showing anything. It's obvious he knew he had the better team, so he was just kind of running slants and outs and corners and, smashes up the gut. I mean, it wasn't as if he was digging deep into his playbook.
Right, but when you look at a Chip Kelly team, that's what he does. He's a lot of inside zone, outside zone. It's not a lot of wrinkles, I feel like Chip Kelly has always stuck to what he does well, which is they play off of the run game, and you can see that.
Oh, yes.
Even against Hawaii.
He's a power
he's
run.
He's a power, but it's in the power spread.
Yeah, it's like a zone power.
And that's what it seems like LSU might be trending toward, at least earlier in the year. It felt that way whenever they were talking about all the running backs they had, and now you hear about, maybe some people won't be, a little nicked up going into the game. But it could be one of those matchups where you see power versus power, and it's more run heavy than you think. My biggest takeaway from that game was when they came out and let DTR go 4 for 4 and threw a touchdown right off the second half. Like they probably saw some of the criticism, because if you look at the first half stat, it was terrible. Like it was all run game and him running and them,
and like very unimpressive.
Right.
Like,
it was just vanilla.
Very high school.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It was
like we're just better than they are.
To read. Nothing that he was looking at. I mean, he wasn't, going through a progression. I mean, he didn't look like a senior quarterback by any means.
But then I feel like they saw that too, and like, all right, we got to put some stats up for DTR, and that 4 for 4 drive and a touchdown was pretty impressive. He can throw it. If you're an LSU fan and you're watching that game and you're thinking, oh, he was like 4 of 12 at half for 56 yards, it looked terrible. And then he comes out 4 for 4 for 56 yards and a touchdown. That's totally different. It gives you something to kind of worry about, because he can throw the ball. But, man, it was just a lot to take in at that moment, to watch essentially the team, the team that you're about to play, and you're trying – we probably put it under a microscope a little bit, because you're trying to diagnose everything that they're doing. And it's hard to not walk away impressed.
Yeah, no, I thought that they were very impressive for an opening week. And to see the way that they executed, I was very impressed with their run offense. Defensively, I think they'll be a nice test. I think their offensive line is pretty good. I still believe that they have not put their hands on a guy like Ali Gay or Jaquelin Roy or some of these guys at Joe Evans of the world, B.J. Ojulari. But they play with confidence. You can tell they're upperclassmen. You can tell that they've played a lot of football. I mean, they've a lot of experienced guys that are on that field for UCLA. I'm telling you, I think this is a perfect opening week test for LSU. I think that this is a game that, man, I think it'll be back and forth. I'm thinking this game is not going to be as much of a, hey, just get off the bus, put the helmet on, let them see your LSU and win the game. I think that you're going to be in the second half having to execute to win the game, which I believe that's phenomenal for LSU in the opening week. I mean, think about how many questions you are going to get answered from LSU by Monday. Like when you wake up Monday morning, you will know that what Max Johnson looks like on the road. Who does he look for after Kayshon Boutte? Who's the primary ball carrier on this team? Who's the offensive lineman that when they began to struggle, that they looked to on the sideline and said, get in there, you got to go play a series? Who is that sixth guy on the offensive line? How good are Stingley and Ricks? Really, because Chip Kelly, if you watched his press conference today, and I know that, there's a lot of gamesmanship and sportsmanship that goes back and forth between these pressers, but you can tell the sincerity of Chip Kelly when he talks about Derek Stingley. I mean, you can see the way that he understands who he is. He's not just giving you the media guide runoff of, hey, this guy's a Thorpe Award finalist, he's an All-American as a freshman. No, he's telling you, like, his technique, his ball skills are the best I've ever seen. This is the best cornerback that we'll play all season. And I've been telling our guys that and our quarterback that for a long time.
Well, and Chip Kelly has experience going against an LSU team before, because when he coached at Oregon, that's when he had his big realization in Jerry's world, when he was like, oh my God, LSU is built differently.
Yeah.
Like this team, I have defensive ends chasing down 4-star running backs, 5-star running backs, cats that we thought were fast. So I think if you're from UCLA's perspective, they have an idea, or at least because Chip Kelly is the coach, which, first of all, I think he thinks he has a squad. I don't think
what's his best team.
Yeah,
he's been there for 4 years. This is his best team.
I think he's very confident in them. I think he thinks that they're a 9-10 win team. He thinks they can win this game. They're not the UCLA that when he got there, that was a pushover.
No way. I got to imagine that this is a mile marker for him.
This is
coming up on Saturday.
Game.
This is how good are we? How far have we progressed? Where are we in the discussion of major players within college football? That's what UCLA, win or lose. I think even if they're in a fourth quarter game with LSU, that Chip Kelly probably internally will be like, okay, you know what I mean? We're on the right track. You know what I mean? But if they come out and get blown out, Chip Kelly's in trouble. mean, like, legitimate. He's in trouble, I think, if they come out and they lay an egg against LSU. I mean, to me, this is a landmark. This is a mile marker game for Chip Kelly that you can ultimately say, hey, look, you could see the improvement in that LSU loss. Or, God forbid they beat LSU or something like that. I mean, that could be a program-changing win for him. But this, to me, is a huge mile marker for him.
He seemed very confident after the UCLA game, and the way he was acting and the way he was because Chip Kelly doesn't have a very, outgoing personality. It's more of, you could tell he was internally confident, and he was like, all right, this team looks good. Just the way he was carrying himself. And when you go and look at what he's done at Oregon and what he's done even in the NFL, he had touches of success. So I'm not surprised, but I think he does have an idea that they will be good and be competitive. And when you put everything together with LSU having to go to Houston to practice and UCLA coming off of everybody's blowing up to be a monumental win against Hawaii. We'll see how good Hawaii is throughout the year, because I don't think they were
Hawaii's not Hawaii.
Very good.
Hawaii's not Hawaii.
But they have that name to where you're like, oh, shit, Hawaii.
Right, yeah.
So I think they have a ton of momentum going into this, and it seems like the deck's a little bit stacked against LSU going into this. So this is when Coach O might be at his best. This is his back against the wall again.
Well, this sets up to be a huge home run for O, because to me this is absolutely right in his wheelhouse. I mean, this is a belt-high fastball for Orgeron that he's sitting on his heels waiting to turn on and just knock it into outer space, because you talk about going to Los Angeles, he feels extremely comfortable there. He's going to a place where he's probably got more visitors coming to, and I'm not saying that this is not a business trip. He's going to keep it business, but there's probably more L.A. football people waiting to come say hello, tell Ed Orgeron hi, than some of the UCLA boosters. You know what I mean? His team being moved to Houston in the grand scheme of adversity, in my opinion, is not a big deal. It's really not. At this point in camp, you can talk to anybody on that team. You can talk to anybody at football. They'd love to go somewhere new. They'd love to get out of the building. They'd love to break the monotony of every single day we're seeing the same four walls. Forget that LSU just opened the doors to the multi-million-dollar complex, and it's beautiful and it's state-of-the-art. It fits every need, but it gets old, even to the five-star football player that won over in facilities and recruiting. I mean, going to an NFL facility by the Houston Texans, by all accounts, Ed Orgeron was speaking publicly again today. I mean, the Texans have opened up their doors to their facility, giving them like full staff, anything they need. So, I mean, that is
they welcomed him in with an intro sign into NRG Stadium. Like, they welcome LSU. Hell, welcome LSU.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable that it was be able to roll out that fast. Like, shout out to the Houston Texans being able to do that, to be able to put out, you have our full facilities, here's an LSU welcome. Like, they rolled out the red carpet for him almost.
No, they did. This is the first piece of PR that I've seen the Texans get right in over a year. Like, in a long time. This is the first time I kind of sat back and was like, the Texans they're doing a pretty good job here.
Unbelievable.
I mean, but for LSU, as far as being distracted, I'm not buying into it. I think almost you could spin this as a positive. Get their mind right. Now you kind of break that the first piece of travel is not to L.A. Hey, guys, we traveled to Houston 4 days ago. You've already been on the move. We've already had to pick up, move all of your stuff. You've lived out of a hotel room. This is nothing new. The only thing that you've got to get adjusted to now is changing the time zone, right? I think that there's a big emphasis once they land Thursday on trying to catch this time zone. Not even Thursday. I think it's beginning right now with their sleep clocks. The way that they're handling, the way that their sleeping pattern is moving. And I think they're also having to coach into them next week. You know what I mean? You don't want to get them into such a funk where you got to coach. You got to get them back into the central time zone.
Jet lag,
right? I mean,
but I mean, I think that comes into with Jack Marucci being moved into his new role, where he's monitoring all of that stuff. I'm not too concerned with LSU with jet lag. What I'm more it's not even a concern. It thrills me is that Coach O gets to go back to California, and I know it's not the USC matchup that he probably would prefer. But it's him being able to go to UCLA, go to California, where he thought he should be a head coach, and that would be his rival for, 10 years. And now he gets to go there as an LSU coach and plant his flag into that stadium and be like, look, I've been here before, and I'm not coming. this is a perfect moment for him to be able to kind of put that chapter in the book of his California life, because if you look at it, he wanted that job more than he wanted anything. He was like
that was a low point in his life.
Yes, he was like verbally heartbroken about it. Like he thought he won the job.
Yes. No, this is an FU trip for Ed Orgeron.
That's what I think. And
he's taking the better team. He knows where he's going. He knows where he's going to a place that shunned him, that thinks of him as not worthy for the. He still looks at USC and Pat Hayden and the snobby crowd of Southern California as the ones that kept him out because of the way that he talked or the way that his voice inflected or whatever it was. He is using that. I mean, that's the Michael Jordan that took it personal. I mean, this is the.
And I
took that personal. So we jumped on a plane in Houston and went and kicked the ever living shit out of them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like that is what, to me, this is for Orgeron come this weekend. And I think that, I still watching UCLA play. I still think that LSU holds the advantage in the trenches. I was very impressed with UCLA's offensive line. But again, I mean, you were looking at a Hawaii team that was, trotting out there. No BS. I mean, I watched a lot of high school football leading up into the weekend. I mean, I saw some Texas high school football teams with bigger offensive and defensive lines than Hawaii had. I'm not trying to crack jokes. I mean, I'm being dead serious. I'm being honest. I mean, that was just UCLA. If I can compliment them in anything that they did on Saturday, they did what they were supposed to do. They dominated Hawaii in the trenches because they were supposed to. They were bigger, faster, and stronger. But this is a different animal coming Saturday.
I was more impressed by their scheme and what they had an absolute. You could tell that and I guess it goes back to the Chip Kelly argument, but it seemed like they had a very well put together game plan. Chip Kelly on offense, they scored whenever they wanted to, and their defense was absolutely played with their hair on fire. They were bringing pressure every which way, every time they could. That's what my biggest takeaway from that game is because LSU is a little thin on the offensive line. You worry about how good they are in their front five, and you saw that they were bringing pressure every time, no matter that, like, it was almost to the point where you didn't know when it was coming. It wasn't very synchronized. It was like, 3rd and 18, we should bring pressure here. It wasn't, 3rd and 10, let's sit back in zone. It was all of the times that they feel very comfortable bringing pressure in all of those situations where they'll leave guys on an island, and that should be a cause for concern for LSU.
Kayshon Boutte about to eat because that defensive backfield can't run.
You didn't really get to see it, though.
Well, I mean, you saw it in a couple of spots, and you saw some things that you were like, that ain't going to work. And whoever is the second option, I think is going to be found pretty quick because they're not going to have anything. I mean, I was just looking at the guys on the outside. They don't have anybody that can run with Boutte in a phone booth, much less in an open space. I mean, he's going to run by guys. He is going to catch the football, make one man miss, and it's going to be 6, and they're going to have to adjust. And from there, then you start to see these guys. Who's it going to be? John Trey Kirkland? Is it going to be Jeray Jenkins? Is it going to be Trey Palmer? Is it going to be Brian Thomas? Is it going to be Malik Neighbors? I mean, Chris Hilton, Jack Besh. I mean, all of these cats. Who's it going to be? I think you will see them early on because Boutte is – I think he will be the mismatch early on that is just so obvious of just get one the ball until they make an adjustment. I mean, just watching them with my untrained football eye. I mean, I was just looking and saying, watch their cornerbacks for 3 straight plays and let me see if they can run with LSU on the outside. There's nobody that could guard Boutte one-on-one. There's no way that one of those cats could lock him down. He's just too good of an athlete. He's too strong, and his mentality is something that they just aren't. He's gonna bulldog them. I mean, they're not. They're fragile. They're not physical. They can't really run. They've got poor ball skills. I mean, UCLA's defensive backfield. I know for a fact that Kayshon Boutte is going to dominate them. I don't know what else is going to happen. I think that somebody's going to have a chance to really have a big game on Saturday. Outside, I think Boutte could set the pace early on, but they're going to have to adjust to him, or, he could have a Josh Reed type day.
The only concern was what I brought up earlier, is that pass rush. They weren't concerned about guarding one-on-one because the defense was getting their front four was getting there so quickly, and the way they brought blitzes. Do you not see an avenue where LSU gets behind the kind of behind the 8 ball, where they're not running the ball that well, where UCLA gets to pin their ears back. Because if you think about it, who's LSU's running back to you?
Right now, I would say they're going to start TDP if he's healthy.
Right. That's a concern. And then John Emery, where's he? You have Armani Goodwin. There's reports of him not being healthy. And then you have Corey Kiner. Like, this is not that running back depth is not as what it's been sold. Like, it seems like if these guys can't play, if the TDP is more hurt than he seems, then where do you turn? And then that turns into UCLA being able to pin its ears back against a quarterback who has only started 2 games. This turns into almost a trap game for LSU. If you're really thinking about it, the spread's only 3 points. It dropped from 4.5 to 3 after that game because you saw a bunch of what UCLA can do, and they have athletes on the front 4 and the back end. You're right, but you have to be able to have time to be able to do that. What's LSU's biggest weakness?
Offensive line. Great test for the offensive line. Phenomenal test for the offensive line. I stick by what I say on Hawaii though. They're blocking.
Yeah, they're terrible.
A Louisiana high school 4A high school football team. Really, UCLA was on Saturday. They were supposed to dominate them. Vice versa, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. As worrisome as the LSU offensive line has been to me, and I think everybody who has been covering and knows this team in camp, I still think that this isn't, by even after watching UCLA play and knowing the personnel of LSU, I'm not overly concerned about that part of the game. I'm really not. I think that's probably an even matchup when it's all said and done. You know what I mean? Like, once you get to the tail of the tape and you look at both sides' lines of scrimmage and you say UCLA's defensive line versus LSU's offensive line, both have question marks. UCLA has answered some here early on. LSU still has them, but they've got guys like Ed Ingram and Austin Deculus who have played Liam Shanahan a lot of football up to this point. So you give them a couple of check marks in the experience category, which I know UCLA, that's their big selling point. When you talk about UCLA, when people talk about UCLA, when they sell you on UCLA, it is experience. DTR, 4-year starter, offensive line, top 7 return, defensive backfield, all of them come back. You know what I mean? They're selling you
transfer portal
on
with
the
running
experience.
backs.
Yeah, who looked very good.
He looked awesome.
Run game's biggest test. Run game versus UCLA's run offense versus LSU's run defense has become the most intriguing matchup to me going into the game by 1,000. Like, I think that this is going to be a phenomenal opening first test for a group that has tremendous expectation around them in the LSU defensive line, right? Like guys like Joe Evans, where's Jaquelin Roy at going into year 2? How good is B.J. Ojolari going to be? Is Ali Gay still unblockable? All these guys that you know are there and that can be dominant against UCLA running game last week that was done. I mean, they controlled the entire game.
When you talk about LSU and their front 4 and their front 7 even, what do you talk about? You talk about pass rush. This hasn't been a time where we've ever talked about, well, they're going to be stout against the run, because the sexy athletes are the B.J. Ojolaris, the Ali Gays, where they pin their ears back and get up the field. And when you have a DTR who obviously was mobile and he looks phenomenal when he kind of breaks the pocket, that's a weakness for LSU. If he can step up, slide, and move and get going, that could be a problem. And we haven't talked about who's going to be able to stop the run up the middle. Like, is it a Bug Strong? Like, Mike Jones, we want him lined up on the tight end almost, because you saw him. They tried to get him going a little bit. 85. What was his name?
The big tight end.
Yeah, 85.
He's a problem.
Yeah, he's a problem. And I think that's a Mike Jones matchup if they're going to run the ball well. So I think that might be because when you go back to how we even started this conversation, it was Chip Kelly runs more of a run-heavy spread offense that will punch you in the mouth, and it's deceiving because when you think of spread, that's not what you think of. So I wouldn't be shocked to see LSU trying to kind of be on their heels a little bit if they can't pin their ears back and have those 4 guys rushing.
Greg Dulcich. Stud. Yeah, I'm with you. But I still think that LSU.
Oh no, I just say. I mean,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Dude, 3-point spread makes me nervous.
Yeah, it did close up.
It would be a monster. This is a monster game.
For
LSU.
both.
No.
No, it's an enormous game for UCLA.
Well, who would you, no.
You don't think that this is
It
a big
is,
game for
but
UCLA?
if you had to rank it for LSU versus UCLA, where would you put it on the scale of 1 to 10? LSU, it's an 8. UCLA, it's a 6.
I haven't been as intense as you have been on the.
They can't lose game 1.
On the scope of the game.
This is a monster.
It's a big one.
It's a monster.
It's a big one, but you can still accomplish everything you want to if you lose the game. So it's not a suicide game for LSU. You don't lose all of your goals if you lose. It will be devastating come Monday. It will be phenomenal for what we do in the post-game chatter of it. But in the grand perspective of the season, you can overcome losing this game. Do you want to lose it? You never want to lose it, but you can't overcome losing to Texas A&M, Auburn, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. You can't overcome that. You lose to UCLA, you win those games that we're talking about, you have overcome that loss from the first game of the season.
Yeah, and I guess just because of where we are, it could be out of sight, out of mind at some point. But just when you look back at how the season ended last year and how everything was 5-5, LSU team coming off a miracle run where they're the best team of all time, and then you have this. You have UCLA week 1 in Pasadena on national television, and you lose. That fodder continues to where LSU loses its kind of its clout where
it's
it is.
It's a huge hit to the brand of LSU football, of just the overall thought of who they are. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people, when you just think brand on brand, a lot of people, when they hear LSU's playing UCLA this weekend, everybody would probably say the majority would probably say I got LSU. You know, which let me state for the record, I got LSU by 2 scores here. You know what I mean? Like a 6-10 spread.
I had it at 4.5 now. I have to go get it at 3. I had to bet it twice.
So I can't wait to be there. I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to experience everything around this game. It's going to be beautiful. I think they said 75 degrees at kickoff with 0 humidity. In fact, I was talking to my buddy today who we're staying out with in Santa Barbara. Shout out to Justin Parnell, a great friend of mine, childhood friend, who has him and his family have done so many successful things and living a great life with a beautiful family out in Santa Barbara, California. Will open up his doors to me and my family, and looking forward to catching up with him. But he was telling me to pack a coat, pack a hoodie, because it's going to be, it'll be a little chilly come kickoff. I mean, yeah.
There's nothing better than that weather over there. Just
dispensaries and hoodies, bro.
Yeah, dispensaries and hoodies. They just walk around. Oh, you got it down?
Leah got it. Leah got it. Leah got it.
I've only been there one time, and it was exactly what you think California is. I was in Huntington Beach when I worked with Marucci, and everybody has all their windows open, all their doors open, and they're just drinking wine at like 3 p.m. and out on their porch. Like they don't give one bleep about everything else that's going on in the world. They're just living their own life, and the weather there is what sets the tone for it. You're gonna have a little, little long sleeve on, a little nice little long sleeve. Get to have a great time. That's unbelievable how it just lives like that. I can't be more jealous.
It will be it will be phenomenal. Looking forward to it. Daily, we're brought to you, remember, by Johnson Spillers. I saw Dr. Spillers in the bunker here a little bit earlier, as I know his Ascension Parish operation out there in Gonzales is battling no power after what everybody out there in Ascension went through with Hurricane Ida. But Johnson Spillers, of course, still online, johnsonspillers.com. They've got their Baton Rouge location for you. Stop in and see them. They are our dentists. They're great friends of ours. They are great people. They can also help you out with some Botox. I know that a lot of people aren't thinking of that kind of stuff right now, but just wanted to remind you of some of the services that they offer outside of general dentistry, and they offer everything, including pediatric work if you need anything done with the kids. But I know during this time that Johnson Spillers will do anything that they can to help the community, and will be out there and supporting everything to get Ascension Parish back up and operating and doing their part just because of the people they are and the supporters that they have been here on the Jordy Culotta Show. And we will always be very grateful and appreciative to Dr. Spillers, Dr. Johnson, and the entire crew over there at Johnson Spillers. They're online at johnsonspillers.com. They've got great social media that you can find online at Facebook and Instagram, johnsonspillers.com. So I know a lot of you are still dealing with power outages right now, and we are going through the same thing. So as we said, if we could take your mind off of it for a little bit and talk some sports, talk some football. If you saw the Saints, we talked about LSU had to pick up and move, and they were moving on the way to LSU went over to Houston. The Saints went over to Dallas, and they're doing it on such a crazy time on the NFL clock. The NFL's got to get down to 53 here. I'm anxious to see if the Saints end up on Hard Knocks. I mean, they're going to Dallas in the last week of production, and they're using their facilities. Could this be a little bit
this year,
yeah,
this
bro?
season.
I mean, they might have a little bit of a kind of a cameo on. I wonder if Payton even through the time right now, if he might just give him an FU.
Yeah, but that's exactly what he would do. Like he wants to. We've talked about this before, but I completely agree. He has nothing. He has no interest in being. It's zero.
You heard Underhill. I mean, we don't really know. I'm just telling you.
Underhill knows.
We're just talking perspective. I'm just talking about like we're watching him on the sidelines. We've interviewed Sean Payton one time, and it was because he was promoting some brand of water that he had just invested in.
How'd that go?
But it was a great interview. It was phenomenal.
But see, he has that in him.
And that was the first time when I was like, golly, he can be that guy if he wants to be. But he was selling. He was in sales mode. But Hard Knocks, that's oil and water.
That's where he draws the line. Is like,
he's not giving you. I'm not giving you any inside information to the team.
Well, and if you think about how the New Orleans Saints program has been run, or the franchise has been run, if they had cameras in there, they would have been smoked out years ago.
Yeah,
like they've had their fair share of troubles, which I think a lot of NFL teams have done very similar things. But the Saints got picked. Like you're the last one in line. That happened, and that has probably jaded Sean Payton against Roger Goodell and Roger Goodell against Sean Payton, whether it be for better or worse. But if you had one team to circle or even bring them into a camp like this with a cameo appearance, the Saints are going to want 0%. You're not miking up any of their players. You're not touching me with the microphone. Sean Payton might not even be out there. Like, it's going to be an absolute – go back to Jerry Jones and his breakfast.
Yes, with salt.
With extra salt.
So it's going to be interesting to see. But Saints are in Houston right now making their final cuts. It looks like Saints and Green Bay opening week is going to obviously be affected with that supposed to be playing in the Caesars Palace Superdome.
Good catch. Good catch.
But that does not look like it's going to be able to happen. So Dallas could be the backdrop of opening weekend for New Orleans as they would host Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Couple of moves today for the Saints. They cut Devontae Freeman. They waived Devontae Freeman, which has opened up the door, in my opinion, for Tony Jones Jr., who's been the story, really, of NFL training or of the Saints training camp, as kind of the name here early on that has made the biggest splash. Looks like he's going to make the 53 and cost. I didn't expect Freeman to really make I thought that he was kind of a camp body.
Yeah. Like maybe let's see if he has one more.
Just take a couple of carries off of Kamara.
Right. And well, and the Saints are notorious for doing that. They tried to sign Champ Bailey. They've tried. They've run out names that you're like, all right, that's a very recognizable name. Let's see if he can play it all, and then they'll retire basically in the middle of the camp. Like, all right, I'm done with this. I can't play anymore. Like I feel like Champ Bailey is the best one where you're like, oh shit,
Adrian
Peterson.
Yeah.
And it turns out he still had legs left, but it just didn't fit the system.
Fit in, yeah.
It didn't fit. I think Tony Jones Jr. will be a guy. He'll be a guy on that squad, and I'm more concerned about what they do with
quarterback.
And how good they're going to be. I think this whole team goes the same way that James goes.
Well, they named Winston the starter.
I know that.
So I think that they're obviously in the quarterback market, probably looking for a backup.
Cam Newton just got cut.
I saw Cam Newton got cut. Surprising?
Surprising.
A little surprising, and then I think that the Patriots leaked a story on the COVID protocol stuff where Cam, it looked like he left the building and then came back. He's an unvaccinated player, so you have to go through some protocol that he didn't adhere to, and the Patriots had to sit him out for an extended amount of time, which opened the door for Mac Jones, who's tremendous, by the way. I mean, Jones is phenomenal.
Wait, we had this conversation about the best rookie quarterback coming to the league. It might be Fat Mac.
It could be. It really could be. I mean, he's so cool. I mean, he's very, just calm in the way that he plays. I know that this is NFL preseason, and he's going up against the 2s and 3s, and Cam's been going up against the 1s, but, I mean, he got the start the other night, bro, and he looked sharp. I mean, he looked as if that was all they needed to see to say, you know what, Cam's out, Mac's in, and with Cam on the market, I don't know if he's a fit in New Orleans or not, but I think that you're definitely looking for somebody to back up Jameis Winston. You think of the potential of having 2 former number 1 picks in the same position with Newton and Winston being coached by Sean Payton is pretty intriguing to think about. I'd imagine that Newton is looking for a little bit more. I mean, he played, I believe, I think he played on the veterans minimum last year because he wanted to kind of prove it.
He wanted to go to New England, and yeah, exactly. He wanted to prove it and prove it to the point where he could come back and be like, all right, I'm going to
now give me the big contract.
And then they draft a rookie, and then he gets shoved out. I think a lot of it probably has to do with the COVID thing where he's unvaccinated, and Bill Belichick didn't put up with any of that kind of bullshit. Like, I don't want you to be able to put this team at a detriment, certainly if you're not a starter, so let's just cut you. And that, that's just, I think Belichick's allowed that cachet to be able to make that call at this point in his coaching tenure. But I read from Nick Underhill today that Ian Book is going to make the squad.
Yes.
So they have their 3 quarterbacks. I wouldn't imagine that they bring Cam Newton in.
Well, I mean, I'm not sold that Taysom Hill's a quarterback anymore.
Okay.
I think that Taysom Hill's he's now a wide receiver. I mean, he's now.
Has anybody heard from him since?
No. Which I think that probably gives you the idea that him and Sean Payton behind closed doors says, what else opportunity do you want to play quarterback in this league?
Where else do you think you could play if not here?
Are you ready to embrace the role of being who you are and just see how much you can squeeze of playing your style of football out of your body? Because at some point it's going to break down. I mean, you're built like a bull, but this league and the game is just so physical that it's broken down even the most titans of warriors of football players. And at some point that day is going to come for you, but that's who you are as an NFL player. If you want to play, impact the game, have an effect on the team, and make the Saints the best they can be,
of themselves.
Yeah, the best version of themselves, then you need to be covering kicks on the punt team, possibly the punt returner. You need to be a weapon on offense that we can either pitch it to, throw it to, put it quarterback and run it with. You need to be that guy. I mean, and there's nobody on this planet that's like you or nobody in this league that is like you, and there's no better mind behind the player and the scheme than what you have. You're not going to go anywhere else and have anybody sell you and draw up for you more ways to be successful than Sean Payton. He's as good as the league has to offer. So it's now time, in my opinion, for Taysom Hill to just really hug that. You know what I mean? Just to really
31 years old?
Embrace that. I think he is, but I mean, he lost some time to his missionary work that he was. Is it missionary?
No, that's sure.
Is it mission?
It's sure.
Yeah, why not? Why
not
not?
doggy style work. Yeah, they did.
But I mean, he's older.
Yeah, he went overseas.
He's older.
No salt, no sugar.
He's older.
Missionary work. Fix your teeth.
Yeah. Yeah, right, man. I mean, you got some money. I mean, look, man. Just embrace the role, right? I mean, embrace the role.
No, I agree. And I don't. But the point I was trying to get to is that I don't think he could do that anywhere else other than New Orleans. Sean Payton knows exactly how to use him. He knows what role he fits in. Why would you go somewhere else to try to play quarterback whenever You're 31 years old. This is what you are at this point. This is what don't fall down the same missionary work that Tim Tebow did, where you're out the game for a little bit. You think that maybe you could only play quarterback. Understand the paychecks there. Understand what you're working for. But at this point, just it's still not bad money, man. Like, that's a ton of money that you would be walking away from. And his contract is obviously...
They paid $21 million over 3 years?
His contract is very confusing, where it's like $140 million and it's all voidable. Like, all that will work itself out in terms of him not being a starting quarterback. But I don't see him walking away from New Orleans to become, like a backup somewhere else? Like, this is the role you were born for. Just embrace it. And he's done a great job of that up to here. And I'm glad he worked to try to become a starter. But if you watched a single second of any of these preseason games, you could tell which one was better from the jump. Jameis was the starter no matter. Like, it was never really close.
It was not close.
Exactly.
It was not close. It was Brennan Johnson. Really. I mean, it was never close. It was never close.
Nussmeier, Brennan? Nussmeier, Johnson?
And Nussmeier. What about him?
I'm just saying, is that the new competition?
I don't think so. No, I don't.
Do you think you see him in any? This is just a tangent. Do you think you see him in any packages just out there as like a read option? Because he brings something to the table. Max Johnson is mobile. We all know that. But I feel like Nussmeier's a little bit cagey.
You'd hate to get too risky and get him hurt.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's
rolls downhill after that.
Scenario once that really happens. I mean, if they experience injury to any of those guys, Johnson or Nussmeier, at any point, something that is threatening for the season, I mean, they're playing on the razor's edge. They're playing on the edge of the cliff. You know what I mean? It's just your insurance is gone, right? I mean, like, think about where you were as far as luxury 3 months ago. 4 months ago.
4 quarterbacks.
And you had 4 legitimate starters in the league, or 3 legitimate starters in the SEC. Now you're staring down the barrel of one snap of being away from a true freshman, or if you want to put a package into the game, it's something that consists of him being one snap away from a Jontre Kirkland. Because I don't think that you look at one of these walk-ons and say, legitimately go try and do that.
No, that makes you look at what Kentucky did, and then whenever they were able to move in, basically a wide receiver.
Who's the best athlete on the team?
We can win 8 games doing this, which is incredible in that regard. But I just think he brings a little something to the table that they might entertain. I don't think they'll do it, but it just goes to show that entry to Miles Brennan, which was nonsense, essentially, off the field injury, how much he can hamstring your team to where it changes the game plan for Max Johnson. Like, all of that is a domino effect to where, how does this affect you going into UCLA when you see that pass rush, when you see what might work in terms of how they were getting up the field and how they were rushing the passer? It's like, well, I'd like to run Max Johnson here. I'd like to do a little QB pool. I was watching the 2019 games a couple of nights ago, and it's just how often they called on that quarterback draw or that little screen or something like that to be able to get, 4 yards, 5 yards, third down conversions. That takes away from your game plan if you're not available to do that,
I agree, man. I mean, I think that it goes into what we talked about with the play calling. How does the play calling be affected with the insurance policy? I mean, essentially, of just what you feel like you have at quarterback. I mean, you've got really a high-end guy in Johnson and a high-end newcomer in Garrett Nussmeier, who's, pretty much unproven, both of them. More Johnson than what he did, after the last 2 games last season. But still, I mean, it's a very minimal sample of seeing him on the big stage. Are you able to open up the full playbook and call what you would really want to call for him, knowing that, one of his biggest strengths is, getting out there and playing
plays.
And playing in the open, and in the open is where you could get snapped.
This is a fascinating. I know, God, it feels like we're talking about it almost too much, but LSU UCLA and how close this game has become. It almost snuck up on us, it feels like, and new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. You're going to see so many things that will tell you a lot about LSU.
Telling you, man.
This
That's
year.
what I tell you on Monday morning when we come back to this thing and we're talking about it. You will have a lot of the questions that you have right now. A lot of them will have solidified answers. Like you'll know, like, hey, this is the guy that's the guy they played, or this is what he did on third down. This is how he blitzed there. This is what I mean. You'll be able to see all of that stuff come this game, because I think you're gonna have to play. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't some opening game where you can go in there and hide.
It's not the pushover that they maybe have thought that it was. Like, I feel like it wasn't it's not a McNeese. It's not a, you run into ULM or any of those teams. This is a legitimate game, but it's not quite to the scale of when you play at Wisconsin and you're like, all right, I understand what's going to happen here. Like, this could be close. UCLA, before this year, it doesn't seem like they were very at that level. And after even just the Hawaii game, it feels like they got some dogs out there to where this will be close, just because of all the turnover from LSU, everything that has happened in terms of getting, Hurricane Ida, got to move. Now you have to go out to the West Coast, and now you don't really have anybody solidified that you can lean on aside from Coach O. He is your only stalwart on that program because everybody else is new.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating to think about the storylines that are just going to be popping going into this game. That is a lot of our LSU coverage. We'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah, we're going to come back tomorrow. Still time yet to be determined. Just make sure you're on social media with us and following what's going on. Had some Saints stuff for you. We'll give more of what we're thinking about on the 53 there. And then we went out and watched a couple of some recruiting on Friday night for our game of the week. Rohan and I were out there and took little Jay and a couple of his friends, and they went and ran around. Shout out to Scott Stevens, who's the principal over at Woodlawn High School, who rolled out the red carpet for us, gave us sideline access, gave us access to pregame, and we were kind of bouncing around and getting a lot of footage. If you haven't seen it yet, if you're on the YouTube station, you can check out some of the clips that Jack was able to cut up, and Quincy Wiggins, Ricky Collins, Jacoby Matthews. Not Jacoby Matthews. Matthews, the
number 7.
Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews, the cornerback for Woodlawn, and a couple of just high-end players for both sides. I mean, pads popping, a lot of shit talking, a lot of guys that were bouncing back and forth in pregame and bouncing on the field for a jamboree matchup between Madison Prep and Woodlawn. That was as entertaining of a 24-minute football game as you can find. Quincy Wiggins in a football uniform. He looks like Lawrence Taylor. He looks legitimately like Lawrence Taylor in a football uniform. And I know that we get our balls busted about how much we freak out about Quincy Wiggins here on the Jordy Culotta show. But, I mean, if you have not seen the footage from last Friday night, that cat in a football uniform is, LT. He is just, wow. I mean.
And he decides when he's going to go 100%, and you can tell whenever it is. Like, there is, times whenever, especially on defense.
Absolutely. And Jack got some really good clips.
Yes.
He got some really good clips of him of kind of, you can tell when he's ready to rev it up and he's ready to go. I mean, he put a swim move, knocked the ball out, came from behind on one play where it was just like, I don't know what you can do to defend that. I don't know what you do if you really want to stop that. But there was also plays that we played on an Instagram story where he missed Ricky Collins he had Collins in the backfield where Collins kind of pulled up and he had him kind of dead to right, and Wiggins went after him and missed him. And look, Collins is big time too, man. He is super big time in the way that he competes. The way that you should have seen the way that Rohan was talking to him on the sideline. Just kind of, Rohan's, and I'm not saying that Rohan was stepping on Coach Randall's toes, because they did a phenomenal job of coaching their group and coming back and winning that game by one. But it came down to the last play for Madison Prep and Woodlawn. But Rohan is Collins' 7-on-7 coach in the offseason, and just watching the game with him. In the way that he was talking about Ricky, to Ricky, at Ricky, during the game.
During plays.
Yeah, it was just, you could tell the respect. You could tell the respect and kind of what he thinks of him. You know what I mean? You're not going to coach somebody like that if you don't think that they can get it and understand it. I mean, he's talking to him almost like a college-level player. I mean, the way that the things and the shit they're talking about is not, hey, man, we need you to be better this play. I mean, it's like, when you get off that third step, bounce and throw the ball. I mean, it's a lot of
high-level shit.
A lot of high-level stuff. I will say this, in the world of recruiting, and I think I saw somebody within the bunker put this up. I think it was Chili Vic pointed it out. Jamon Tapp committed to Texas today, and that's the big defensive end from Ascension Catholic.
Wait, he was? I thought he was in the pocket.
No, I thought he was too. I really did, and I think a lot of people at LSU thought he was.
Are they going 2 for 2?
2. They could here.
Because they're friends.
You want to talk about shake it up now.
This Texas
now Tapp
SEC thing.
Tapp is the 5-star defensive end that we never talk about
because he was in LSU's pocket.
He's in Donaldsonville. I mean, name a more LSU pro town than Donaldsonville, Louisiana, right? I mean, people I think just kind of took for granted that was going to happen, and maybe even people at LSU. I'm not speaking on that, but I think a lot of people were shocked when they saw the news come across the wire today that Tapp had committed to Sarkeesian and Texas. And now, look, I know that there's time left on the clock here, and December is a few months away, and February is even further, but both these guys are going to be early enrollees, are going to be December announcements. You have got to get these two guys from LSU standpoint. And again, I know that I've heard it from everybody. I've checked the DMs. I've gotten the emails about people about what I said about if you don't get Quincy Wiggins, somebody's going to lose their job. People were thinking that I'm talking about Ed Orgeron. Ed Orgeron's not going to lose his job if they miss Quincy Wiggins. Ed Orgeron's going to fire somebody if they miss Quincy Wiggins. If they miss Wiggins and Tapp, 10 stars of defensive ends in 2 players, 2 5-star guys that live in the shadows of Tiger Stadium. Quincy Wiggins is at Madison Prep on Foster Boulevard, North Foster in Baton Rouge. That's 5 minutes from Tiger Stadium. Jamon Tapp is at Ascension Catholic, which, as we said, is as pro LSU of a town that you will find in this state. And it's also about a 20-minute drive, 25-minute drive. If you take the back roads, 30 minutes, and you go through White Castle, Plaquemine, Bruley, some of the LSU purple and gold bled towns of this state to get to LSU, and Tapp commits to Texas today. I'm not here to blow it up on August 30th and say that the whole thing's over, but if they miss Wiggins and they miss Tapp, that is, first off, inexcusable. At positions of need and positions that it doesn't matter if you need or not, you're always taking defensive ends. Always. And who are we kidding? These two guys are 1 and 1A in their position in the state. You have to get them. You've got to get one of them. It is essential, monumental to get one of them. You really want both of them, obviously. There's not a scenario that I can paint for anybody out there where they swing and miss on both of them. It cannot happen. And with Tapp committing to Texas today, that's more surprising than anything that has happened in this recruiting cycle for me. That is the most shocking thing that I have seen in this recruiting cycle in following this group, knowing how talented they are. From Walker Howard to Jacoby Matthews decommitting, to Shaz Preston still uncommitted, to the offensive line guys that are committed to this group that could be game changers like Campbell and Bordelon and Jones. Jamon Tapp committing outside of LSU and going to Texas. My jaw, wow.
Do you not think that it's there's an avenue there where it's a Quincy Wiggins, Jamon Tapp play where they're going to, because you know how these cats react to recruiting and how they negotiate with themselves. They're almost telling each other, look, if you go here, I'll go here. Do you think it's a package deal for Texas if they get Tapp, they got Wiggins, or if they got Wiggins, they got Tapp?
Shea Dixon has cut out the legs of all package deals to me in recruiting. I thought Corey Foreman and Mason Smith were as locked up as a package deal as you could ever find in recruiting, and both of those guys were selling it like that. They were telling people they were a package deal. It just nobody really inside of it. Orgeron never bought into it. I don't think that, Shea was really kind of breaking down. I don't believe in package deals in recruiting. I think from Sarkisian's standpoint, he is looking at the method and the
But that's what I'm saying. Is that what he's trying to do?
Yeah, that Saban has taken. He's seen the inside of Saban's recruiting war room over the last 4 years, and he knows his tactic of, hey, just go needle them. Just go needle them. You know what I mean? Just know that they have these guys high. I mean, nothing would rattle LSU's cage more than to go take 2 defensive ends out of their own backyard, right? I mean, Saban has now become a master of the Dylan Moses, Tim Williams, Landon Collins of the world, guys that are on campus. Christian Harris is, went to U High. I mean, he was on LSU's campus.
Wanted to be at LSU.
Right? I mean, so Saban knows that, hey, man, just go get 1 or 2, hover over them a little bit.
He's a Toy Story crane.
Exactly.
Just
and
go grab
Sarkisian
one.
has taken that method and gone with incredible facilities. You can't run out of resources or money, and has gone to 2 of the biggest guys on LSU's board, and Quincy Wiggins and really 3 if you want to throw Arch in there. I mean, they've got Arch of thinking anti-LSU at this point. I mean, not anti-LSU, but I mean, it's not a lot about LSU right now with Arch. I mean, it's more about Texas, Alabama, and Clemson.
That leads to the bigger conversation where how much does this play for Texas for them joining the SEC, right? Isn't that their biggest selling point now? Whenever you can roll out the red carpet for all of these cats, and they,
it's a problem, bro. It's a problem that they have the SEC on their business card
because
now.
how much was that a selling point if you're LSU against?
It was the bottom line. They got all the facilities in the world. They've got everything that they can show you, but they don't play anybody.
And you play at 11 a.m. again.
Yeah, you play outside of the major networks and outside of the time slots that anybody gives a damn about. I mean, you play one meaningful game a year that the country's paying attention to, and y'all had won it. Y'all can't beat them.
And it's still at 11 a.m. They do the Red River. How do you want to say it? The Red River Shootout, the Red River Rivalry. At 11, it's an 11 a.m. game. It's a 1 p.m. game. It's never a. When you look at the SEC schedule, what's the best one that sticks out to you? It's the 7 p.m.
The 2:30 slot. The
2:30 is great,
yeah.
But the 7:30 at night, all of that played such a factor. Certainly, if you're a recruit, where you're like, look at this place. Imagine the people that went to the LSU Florida game, the recruits that went there, and they saw LSU Florida in 2019. They're like, holy shit, this place is unbelievable. Whenever it's right. And so I'd imagine that's a huge selling point if you're Texas to be like, look, we're about to get on this same calendar where we can get Austin rocking, which is tough to do because same thing at UCLA battles where there's just way too much to do in that city. But I think Texas is making that push to be able to be like, look, we're selling everything we have to tell you that this is going to be a football school, an SEC school, and if you want to be a part of it, this is the first wave you can ride to be a catalyst almost to start the program. I think that's their pitch to Arch.
No, I think so too. I think that the SEC on the business card of Texas football is
the thing they wanted to add the most.
That is, it's devastating for people, and it's also can push them over the top for a lot of these guys. I mean, that's what LSU has been doing to Texas, going into a suburb of Austin and grabbing one of their best players, or going into the Metroplex in Dallas and getting Jamal Adams, knowing that he was the number one player on Texas's board, right? Like that's the guy that they wanted the most, and you just go in there and pluck him away within 48 hours of signing day. I mean, it's just, to me, that's like now what Texas is doing to LSU.
They're going to be able to keep those cats in Texas now because of that. If you think that's the selling point, that the SEC is the selling point, wouldn't you say that if Texas can pitch that, why would Jamal Adams leave when Texas is going to be he could be part of the build?
It's devastating it's devastating on the recruiting sale. On the recruiting sell of the SEC and LSU being more dominant and that being kind of the bottom line sales pitch, you now have to find you've got to find
A&M?
You've got to find a new strategy. Yeah. I do, because LSU's had so much success in Texas.
I agree.
Texas A&M is going to continue to have success in Texas. LSU is going to see their Texas success really kind of cut out from under them. They may go in there and get one or two players, but they're not going to go get the Kayvon Chassons and the Jamal Adams and the. We can continue. Just think of the Houston area and the success that LSU has had of pulling people out of that city. It's just the final two schools for Kayvon were LSU and Texas. If Texas is selling the SEC to Kayvon, he's going to Texas. In my opinion,
I agree. That's what I'm saying. We've talked about this being a selling point for Texas, but I think you're finally starting. If this is what it is, when they can convince guys to either from Louisiana go to Texas or keep Texas players in state, you're going to see a shift in recruiting that LSU has not had to deal with before. Because the Texas A&M thing, once they fall, it's like Clemson. Once you fall into that little trap, it feels like you're very committed to Texas A&M. With Texas, this is a huge global brand that feels a little bit different. If they're able to be good and sell the SEC, it could be a thing where you see LSU not getting the guys that you think they should get.
No, without question. That's
crazy.
That's the first part of the kind of how you take the brick out of the foundation, right? You kind of starting to weaken the stance of you start taking big time recruits away. Jamon Tapp. That guy,
we haven't talked about him all year.
You didn't have to. You never thought you had to because you always thought that he was a shoe-in for LSU. And
knowing his relationship with Quincy Wiggins and how they've kind of run this recruiting gambit together, it makes you think that Texas is up to something.
Yeah, they are. Still got a season to play. That means a lot.
It means a lot.
It means a lot. Again, let us finish how we started. Thank you to everybody out there. We are thinking about the people of South Louisiana, Terrebonne Parish, Ascension Parish, all throughout the southern parts of Louisiana, Boothville, Venice, Golden Meadow.
Grand Isle.
Grand Isle was smashed.
NOLA.
All of the areas, New Orleans, that were hit, and just some of it devastating. Please know that if we can help in any way, I know that is something that people talk about a lot. We believe that hopefully this is some sense of relief for you, of just getting away from it, diverting away from everything that's going on and listening to pregame talk about LSU and UCLA, because kickoff is 4 days away. As crazy as that is, it is game week for LSU and UCLA. So
I feel like that's a lot of what the hurricane almost took away. We would have been so into it,
just balls deep,
yes, balls deep, and it makes you. It is cause for concern for the LSU football team. I feel like they're enough removed from it, but they still wonder what their family's up to and stuff like that. This is a detriment if you just wanted to look at strictly football. This is a cause for concern if you're an LSU fan. It's something that you didn't need on the register. It's not something you needed on the docket.
It's a distraction. It's an unneeded and unwanted distraction, for sure.
But I think you're right. When your first point was, if there's anybody built for it, it's a man from Louisiana. It's Coach O.
Yeah. Tangipahoa Parish, Hammond. I know not a lot of people haven't spoke about some of the devastation that's going on down there. St. James Parish, St. John the Baptist Parish. I know it's just kind of looking at some of the images and seeing some of the video, devastating. Just an immaculate punch that Ida threw at the southern part of our state. In Baton Rouge, I know without power, the majority of the city without power right now, but for the most part, structurally still intact, and for the most part, no injuries or no deaths to report. So, hopefully everybody stays safe out there. I know that these are some trying times with no AC and the humidity and the heat. So hopefully this was a good little getaway for you. We'll do it again tomorrow. Not sure at the time yet, but we will have it out on social media to give you some type of look ahead or some type of ability to get your alert set so you can check it out. We will be leaving for UCLA on Thursday. We'll have you covered over there in Los Angeles. Really looking forward to that trip. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Lloyd, great work getting us set up over there, buddy.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Great work. Shout out to all of our sponsors there, Lloyd. If you want to flash our sponsor page, shout out to AdvantaClean right now. Remember Bradley Lynch and the crew over there, water, fire, or mold damage. If any of you have it, which I know a lot of people are suffering from right now, get in touch with Bradley over at AdvantaClean. If you need any help with some meals, A-Bear Specialty Meats is open out in Prairieville, out on Highway 73 in the Gonzales location. Stop in there and see Mr. Walt and his crew. As we told you about Go Chevrolet, all of those new models were moved out of the LaPlace area, but their offices were obviously affected. Go Express over here in Florida in Sherwood Forest. Stop in and see them or shop them online at GEAUXChevrolet.com. Go Flow Ivy and Spa Health and Wellness Center over there on Jefferson Highway. Shout out to Brett and his crew over there. Once everything gets back and normal for some people and you need just some time to sit down and catch up and get reinvigorated, stop in and check out Go Flow Ivy and Spa. Thanks for everybody for interacting with us today. Don't forget, still same rules apply here today. Like, share, dislike. Just interacting with us is all we ask for as you're out there. And
happy to be able to do it, dude.
Yeah, it was great.
It was fun.
It was good. We'll be back tomorrow.